Hi everyone, this is Dan here. Before we start our discussion about the book The Wishing Game, I did just want to mention that in this episode, me and B go into a bit of detail about some of the more serious and possibly triggering matters that are included in this book. So I did just want to give a quick trigger warning that if you are at all affected by talk of child abuse, child neglect, death of children, cancer, or miscarriages, maybe consider skipping this episode or just proceeding with caution. There's also a fairly lengthy conversation in this episode where B and I discuss a particular relationship between a child and an adult that exists in this book. It's never tried to be explored as a romantic type of relationship, but we did feel like it was a bit boundary crossing at times and fairly inappropriate for us. So if you aren't comfortable with discussions surrounding that, again, feel free to skip out on this episode and just take care of yourself. Okay, thanks everyone. Now let's get into your regularly scheduled programming.
Hello and welcome to Read the Last Page,
A Yap Session
book club
with your two favorite long-distance best friends.
The book we read this month is The Wishing Game by Meg Shaffer.
And since we finally read the last page, let's talk about it. Hi B, how are you?
I'm good. As you know, I had a 6-hour dance thing today and yesterday, which is why, for the people watching the YouTube, that's why it's so dark. And we're also night. We're trying, it's like almost 8 p.m. for me. We're trying a new setup, and so the lighting's different because it's later and because we're trying something new. Also, my roommate had a friend in town for 3 or 4 days, and so this is actually my roommate's chair. It's this comfy fluffy chair, but of course all of our bedrooms are really small, and so she had to blow up her air mattress for her friend. And she was trying to figure out what to do with this chair, and I was like, you can just put it in my room. And I actually have had it stuffed behind my bed, but then today I was like, wait, before I give it back to her, maybe I should sit in it for the podcast. So I'm honestly chilling right now.
You do look really cozy.
Yeah. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. It's been a really relaxing weekend, honestly. I haven't been needing to do a whole lot. So kind of the opposite of you dancing for 12 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
But I finished this book 3 hours ago, 2 hours ago.
Really?
Yeah. And at first I was like, am I going to be able to do it? But then I did it, and so life was great.
Yeah, which is funny because we took 2 extra weeks to read this one.
Guys, we've been first of all, also this is the first book I've actually finished this year, which is kind of crazy.
Really?
I've been in a bit of a reading slump lately, which I'm not. One of my goals of this year was not putting pressure on myself if I got into a reading slump. I was just take the slump, take the time to don't force yourself back into it. But this is actually one of the things where I did need to read. I did have to force myself to read it, because this is a commitment.
Right.
But so this is the first book I read.
Wow.
And kind of we'll get into it later, but kind of a lackluster kind of first book of the year. But no, literally it's half of this book I don't even think I remember super well because I read it the first 2 weeks of January. And then I kind of didn't really I kind of wasn't picking up the book. So I have to jog my memory a little bit, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles when you have to take a 6-week long period to read one book.
Before we get into the book, can I say one fun thing that I did recently?
Yeah. Go off.
I saw the New York City Ballet for the first time. And it was so amazing. Me and my friend went, the friend that I'm always talking about that reads a million books. And the New York City Ballet, for some of their shows, they have tickets that are $30 if you're under 30 years old. So we went for $30 each, which is crazy. And we were like up at the top in the back, but like we could see, and it was just so amazing and magical, and like I just the ballet. It was just so fun, just, not everybody in their life gets to go like see the New York City Ballet, and like
Yeah.
I got to. I just
Yeah.
feel like I was just there, like I just felt like so like lucky.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so that
That's
was
so
really
cool.
fun.
Yeah. Sweet. Well,
Yeah.
yay.
I just wanted to share that with the audience.
Yeah. That's so nice. I just remembered too, this is kind of off topic, but next time we see each other, is it going to be when we're like a recording day?
Yes, we need to. It was on my mind that we need to talk about that, but I'm like, we might just be able to.
We might be recording in person.
Record in person,
for like the
yeah.
second time ever. That's
Yeah.
my fave. I love being able to like just
Yeah.
be face to face. I think it'd be really fun to do like
Yeah.
a book review.
Almost like we actually like to hang out with each other.
Isn't that
You know?
insane? Isn't that kinda crazy?
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Also, if you're watching and you see this, first of all, my bed's not very much made. There's just like a blanket
neither is
kinda
mine. I
hanging on it,
realized
so-
it's in the frame.
Yeah,
I was like,
hopefully
oh.
no one. Don't judge me for this, you guys. Sometimes you don't want to make your bed on Sunday.
Yeah.
But that black blob right there is my coat that I threw on my bed, and that's my cat literally sleeping on it. She's also black,
Aw.
so if you see her move, that's my cat Belly.
That's
she'll be in
so
frame.
Sweet.
I know she loves my coat, so I try to like keep it on like the corner of the bed that she likes to sleep in, so that way she can like sleep in the coat because she wants to sleep in it.
That's so cute. Just so everybody knows, Belly is the first and one of only like 2 or 3 cats that I've ever loved. I've never been a cat person. I'm just very allergic, and like my family, we didn't grow up with pets, and so like I just never really. It was always. Hi, Belly. She knows I'm talking about her.
Yeah, literally.
But then I met Belly, and then I understood why people have cats.
Well, that was how it went for me too. Like I was never like not a cat person. Like I always grew up with cats, but like I was very much a dog type of person. Like I thought
you had sweet dogs.
Yeah. And so I was always like, and also dogs are just like, if you're not so much. Well, I mean, I guess this could go for anybody, but I just think like dogs are very much like, it's so easy to form a connection with a dog and like feel like a real kinship with a dog, because a dog will like, dogs act like you hold up the sun and the moon, and like
right.
that's how they act all the time. And cats are like, you kind of have to like really work for their love.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I got Belly, I was like, oh my god, I'm such a cat person. It's actually insane. Like it's like I can't imagine having a dog anytime soon, just because like I feel so in tuned with like the lifestyle of a cat. So
yeah.
But Belly like loves Laura. Like, and she's not like that with everybody. Like, she's a very kind of anxious cat. Yeah, but whenever Laura comes over, she's like, I'm sitting on your head. And I hope that's
She loves to sit on my head, girl.
I know, I'm like, girl, she's allergic.
It's okay. Okay. So, how do we describe this book?
Yeah.
Let's give a synopsis. I can do it unless you have something prepared.
I was going to ask you to do it because, like I said, the beginning half of this book, I think I have a slight memory loss for. And so I think you would be better at giving a synopsis.
So the general, like, plot synopsis of The Wishing Game by Meg Shaffer is, it's set in, like, just, like, current day, like, normal life. And there's a very, very popular children's book author named Jack Masterson. And I'm trying to think, like, almost like a Rick Riordan, or like a...
I was thinking and I know he's a bit different, but like Lemony Snicket-esque type of author.
Like
that.
But like something like every elementary school has these books. There's like 30 of them or something. There's like all these books. But he hasn't written a book for several years. And there's a woman named Lucy who's 26 years old, and she works as a kindergarten teacher's aide. And she kind of has a connection to the author and the books, like a lot of people, that the books are very important to them. Um, and then the author announces that he's having a contest, and whoever can answer this riddle gets to come to his island where the books are set, and compete in
Mm-hmm.
a series of like riddles and challenges for the one and only manuscript of his next book. So
Mm-hmm.
nobody knew that he was like writing another book. He comes out and he says, "Hey, I wrote another book. Whoever wins this gets the manuscript," which is obviously everybody like would love to have the book and have the experience of going there, but also there's the monetary aspect of you could sell this book for millions.
Mm-hmm.
So our main character Lucy, like I said, she works as a teacher's aide. She's like barely making any money, and her wish in life is to adopt this 7-year-old boy who was like in her class a couple years ago, but he's a little bit older now, who is like in the foster system, and she wants to adopt him, but she basically she like lives in an apartment with these like college roommates, and she's like 26 and she doesn't have a car, and like there's just no way that she can prove that she could be like a fit mother, in the sense that like she's not really financially stable, and like she
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be able to provide for him. And so this opportunity is like could change her life and change this little boy's life. So yeah, lo and behold, she this is kind of a spoiler, but I mean, come on, it's pretty obvious. Like she competes in the game
Yeah.
with like three other people that are like around her age, are like the four people that are able to answer the first riddle and go. And so yeah, that's kind of like the synopsis intro of this book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that good?
Yeah,
You
that
feel
was
like
really
I
good.
covered everything? Okay.
Yeah, you reminded me of details that I like really forgot about. So I was like, oh, okay, sweet. I'm glad you did that, not me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
Um yeah. So it's kind of about the power of books, and how like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, these books are so important to Lucy as a young girl and also into her adult life, and they're
Mm-hmm.
also important to the little boy Christopher. You know, she reads the books to him when he's like going through hard times and stuff. It's kind of a comfort for him, because obviously he has a hard life with, you know, going through the foster system, and you know, just that's just hard.
Yeah.
And so it seems as though the books are, at least from what we see of the characters that we know in the book, like the books are kind of like a refuge and a comfort to kids that are going through really difficult times,
Mm-hmm.
because so the books that Jack Masterson writes are called the Clock Island books, and in the Clock Island books, it's always like a kid or a couple kids that like have a wish, and like when they go to the Clock Island, like their wish comes true in one way or another. The mastermind that lives there, like, so you know, it's for kids that have a hard life and they have big wishes or even small wishes that are just really important. Like that type of book is of course going to, you know, inspire them and give them hope. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of like, a lot of our main characters have like kind of hard backgrounds or difficult childhoods. So that's another kind of aspect of
Yeah.
the book.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, so I think it's important to note that this is an adult kind of it's crazy. It's just interesting because it's like very whimsical, and I want to say it's like it's definitely not, but like I'm like, to me it feels like a fantastical fantasy-esque, and it's definitely not. And so it's just like a
Yeah.
very interesting book. But it is like this author's like Meg Shaffer. I think this is her real name, and she
Uh-huh.
publishes the other
I
books
think,
under a pen name.
yeah, we were looking into her. I think this is her real name, and this is her first
Like,
novel published
yeah.
under her real name, but she has written other books under like a pen name, a different
Yeah.
name.
Yeah, I think this is like her first like kind of adult fiction book that's not in like the romance genre,
Yeah.
I believe. And so that's kind of interesting
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
read.
It was
Um
interesting to read for sure.
do you have any kind of, because I know we usually do our non-spoiler parts,
Right.
so do you have any non-spoiler thoughts about just kind of like overall what your feelings are toward this book? Like, did you like it? Did you not like it?
It's just hard because like I hate to like okay, if we're talking in a non-spoiler part where it's like
Yeah.
you were trying to describe it to people, I hate to like turn people off from something before
Yeah.
giving it a chance.
Yeah.
But I didn't really love this one. It didn't really, the writing was very, very awkward to me. Like I
Mm-hmm.
felt awkward so much just while reading it. Like I was uncomfortable with what I was reading.
Yeah.
And not because things were like inappropriate or like something like that, but it was just like it was almost like I was getting secondhand embarrassment, and not because of like what the characters were doing. It's not like they were going through embarrassing moments
Mm-hmm.
that you were supposed to feel.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, I don't know, something about, I was just like uncomfortable with the way that things were written,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I didn't really find this book very charming, and I feel like the premise is so interesting. Like at the beginning, I was really, really interested because I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so cool. They're gonna like go to this island that some people don't even know exists, because like the books take place on Clock Island, and it's kind of like, does Clock Island really exist? And like, is the mastermind in the books, like, is he real? So I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so cool and interesting. Like, I wonder what's gonna happen. But then, like, it just wasn't very like. I feel like, okay, because I love kids books and I love fantasy and adventure, and like I love that kind of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so I thought that this was gonna be like up my alley in that way.
Yeah.
Which I know this isn't a kid's book, but the whimsy of a kid's book.
Yeah.
And it just felt not n- both not grand enough and not like personal enough.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like
Yeah. I think I
it
agree.
it either needed to be like, I'm trying to think of something everyone knows, like Harry Potter is like a grand like fantasy, like it's grand, it's big,
Mm.
and everything is like kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think about like, I don't know, like, or even like a John Green book. Like I think of like The Fault in Our Stars. Like things in that book feel so grand. Do you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
but then sometimes you read a book and it's like it's not grand, it's very small, and it's like right between two people or right in one circumstance, and it's very personal. And like I feel like this book was like just somewhere in the middle, and it didn't really, I was like, I couldn't tell if this was supposed to be a big deal or if this was supposed to be right between two characters. Does that make any sense?
Yes. I think I understand what you're saying. I think I agree with you, and tell me if this is not really exactly what you're going for, but like I found the book to be like fairly lackluster.
Yeah.
And because it promised to be something really kind of exciting. And like when I think of a competition, like I think is gonna be, this is a horrible example, but it's the only thing I can think of, but like Hunger Games competition levels, like I
Yeah.
need to feel like the tension. I want to feel like kind of like the grand scale of
Yeah.
how people feel when they're competing and like what really is at stake. And it's like the author kept telling me how grand and crazy and like how much we should want Lucy to win, but like genuinely I never felt like that there was ever anything at stake. You know, I was
Yeah.
like, of course this is gonna work out, like it's gonna be
Right.
fine. Like I just never felt like, yeah, like I agree, I never felt like it was as bold or daring or like grand, like you said,
Yeah.
as it was promising it was going to be.
Yes. And like and like and so then if it's not going to be grand, then like the other way I think the
Yeah.
spectrum leads is if it was like just about Lucy and Jack Masterson and
Mm-hmm.
something going on there. But there's like these other characters too. So it's just it was just like what are we going
Yeah.
for? It just was like, what are we going for? Like I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like this book to me is like, when you like make a smoothie and like you put like a banana in the smoothie and then all of a sudden like you can taste mostly just banana in the
Yeah.
smoothie. I felt like the author was trying to make a really complex smoothie with like all these like different things, and then like she ended up putting a banana in the smoothie. And like all I can focus on is the fact that this smoothie doesn't taste like anything because I can just taste the banana. And
Yeah.
so like I think like there was a lot she was trying to do, and I think it was like a really interesting premise. Like the idea, like it's kind of, I believe how she describes it is like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory but for the book world. And that's super cool and compelling. And it's like the idea of like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is like a really, like you can do so much with that. And I think it's just like she was also like, but like I'm gonna make it adults, even though I'm not gonna exactly like make the writing suit the adult characters. And
That
then like
might have
there's,
been the downfall.
yeah, like to me it was written like a YA book, and I
Yes.
wanted it to be YA. I think if the characters were just teenagers and we took out the adoption plotline and like the
Yes.
fact that we have all these adult struggles kind of being mixed into all this, like it would have been so much more interesting.
Yeah.
um but unfortunately we're dealing with people in their late 20s and like 30s who I don't think should have been acting the way they were acting.
I 100% agree. And like
Yeah,
we can say that because like
we're
we
her
are
age.
26. Yeah, like
I was like, girl.
like there was just I know that like not every woman that's 26 obviously is going to act the same.
Yeah.
But I was just like I can't relate to her,
Mm-hmm.
and I also can't imagine any of my peers or friends like being
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah. Well, like also another thing, and this goes back to my smoothie metaphor, but like I felt like none of the characters were incredibly well, they felt very one dimensional to me. I really
Yeah.
can't pick apart more than like two traits that Lucy has.
Yeah.
They're just very kind of like, they have like, it's like Lucy's just like very affected by her childhood trauma, and then like Hugo is just like the tortured artist, and like Jack Masterson is like the whimsical author, and like that's like
Yeah.
all of their traits. Like that one trait can basically sum up the entire the entire character. And like I just wanted, I think, so much more out
Yeah.
of all of them, so I could like
Yeah.
actually root for them and like feel connected to them. But like I
Uh-huh.
really didn't have that.
Even like even like Christopher, it's like
Yeah.
okay, like he's a little boy that loves sharks and is good at reading.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, I don't want to say this like why did she care about him, because like I would probably
Right.
care about like a little boy that was
Yeah.
in his situation,
Right.
but it was just like it's like, why was she this
Yeah,
kind of goes
so
into something else, but why was she so obsessed with him,
yeah,
so obsessed?
yeah, yeah.
That also was like part of what was so awkward for me reading, is I felt like the author of this book didn't know how to appropriately
Yeah,
and and with care
yeah,
write like a, it's not even really a mother-son relationship, but something that wants to be mother-son. Like,
yeah.
it was so uncomfortable
It
for
was
me.
so, it was real, and I think I could actually point at every relationship that an adult had with a child in this book and be like, I don't think that's appropriate.
I
And
agree.
and it's like I think if you come at this book with the most innocent and well-intentioned mind, you could be like, this is fine. These people just care a lot about these children, and that's fine. But like, no. Like when you're talking about things as serious as people coming from um houses where there are like child abuse or child neglect, or like just like
Yeah.
really like serious topics like fostering or like childhood illness, like you have to approach all of that with like so much care. And I agree, I don't think it was really done
No.
as well as it could have been or should have been.
Should have been, yeah.
So
And
yeah.
like, I have 10 nieces and nephews and about to have 11.
Mhm.
So I know what it's like to be a woman in my 20s and be obsessed with kids.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
my nieces and nephews so much. I would do anything for them. I would adopt them if for some reason that situation arose, and I would love them. And so it's like, I know what it's like to be. Obviously, like, I'm not actively pursuing adopting any of them. But what I'm saying is, like, I know, and I'm actually like family with those
Mhm.
kids, and so I feel
Mhm.
like I have an even closer, like, I have blood relationship to these kids, and I would not write about or talk about the kids in the way that
Yeah.
Lucy was. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
my
And
love is very, very deep and very, very strong,
yeah,
but it
100%.
but not in an and like, I'm obsessed with him, but not in an obsessive way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we have to get into like when we'll come back in the spoiler section,
Yes.
like really deeply dissect Lucy and Christopher's relationship, because
Yeah.
it really rubbed me the wrong way many times. But yeah, but no, I agree 100%. I just think for Lucy, I think it would have been better if like we had her maybe more so like a family member of Christopher's and not like just a teacher's
Yes.
aide.
I agree. Like, yeah. Like his cousin, or like
Yeah, like a sister,
his
or yeah,
aunt. Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, just something that made me feel a little bit more okay with like the level of like love that she had for this kid.
What else can we say that's like non-spoiler, or should we like
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
say like,
Well, I kind of want to give a little bit of like good,
yeah, yeah,
like I
yeah.
think so. Okay, my opinions on this book, like I don't dislike it. I don't love it. I'm very middle ground about it. I think that like honestly, I think it was written to be a very like comforting or like a feel good read, and I think if you don't have as many issues with this book as me and B do, I think I understand why this could be a very comforting read. It's like very
Yeah.
like it's a fairly whimsical premise. I love the idea of like this island that they go to. Like I thought like the setting was very interesting, and the idea of like a competition game that's not like life or death and
Mhm.
like kind of like people who are in charge of it are fairly well intentioned. No one really dies or gets killed in it. It's I think if that's like something that's interesting to you, this might be a very fun, easy read. Also, very fast paced, very short book. It's under 300 pages. And so I think that really works well in its favor. Um yeah, like I mean, I understand like the uniqueness and like why to some people this can be like, I'm going to use a word that you used earlier, but like a very charming book. Like I can see that being something. I didn't love it, mostly because I think it had so much potential that it just didn't reach.
Yeah.
And so, but some people might not think that. You know, I think this has like a 4 point something rating on Goodreads.
Wow.
So people do like it, and so
this is why I can't join Goodreads, because
yeah. I mean, I don't know. Also, this author is well, I don't know if she still is, but at the time that she wrote this book, she was a Missourian, and that's me.
So
and
represent
Bee's home turf. Hey, girl.
There's one more thing I want to say. It's not specifically about this book, but I was listening to Dear Hank and John, and but it was actually John, and I'm pretty sure his wife, John's wife is Sarah, I think. Anyways, they were talking, and I texted you a little bit about this. They were saying how, like, they had a 2-person book club when they were, like, you know, first started dating or whatever. Oh, and because someone, like, wrote in and asked a question, like, you know, me and my friend are having a book club, but, like, one of us reads, like, a chapter a night, but, like, I like to read, like, for 2 hours all at once. So, like, how do we stay, like, on the same whatever? Anyways, what Sarah and John were saying is, like, well, in the end, like, the point of the book club is to talk to someone you care about things that you care about. And, like, they were like, the book is just, like, the gateway into conversation. And I was thinking about that for going into this one, because I was like, you know, we like more when we get to be like, oh, we love this book so much, and here's what we love about it, and we love when this character did this and that. And, like, I knew that this episode probably isn't going to be as much of that, but I think there's a lot of interesting things to discuss, like, socially about what the characters were doing, and also, like, about the writing itself. And anyways, so when I heard that, this was literally, like, 2 days ago that I was listening to that, and they were like, you know, the point of having a book club with a friend is to talk about stuff together. Like, that's what it's about, you know? And I was like, that's so, like, B and
so
Dan.
Yeah, I love that. No, I love that. No, I do think that it's like, and thank God this has only happened maybe twice. It's just best when we can both be on the same page. I hate the idea of, like, duking it out with you on the podcast. But it's more so just, like, good as long as we're on the same page for me.
Yeah.
Like, I just like that.
Right. Like, I think we're going to have some interesting conversation. Yeah. Which is, like, that's the whole point. Even if we didn't love the book and give it a 5-star rating, like, we're talking about it, you know?
Yeah,
so
that's a good point. I love that. It's so sweet and pure.
Yeah, I loved that. So shall we go into spoilers section? Okay.
Yes. Let's transition.
So from this point on, like, the whole book is fair game. So if you want to read it, like, go read it first, because this is the type of book that kind of has, like, some spoilers, so you wouldn't want to know until...
Yeah.
Okay, here we are. Okay,
cool.
I haven't even been referring to my notes now that we're not recording on our phones.
I haven't looked at my notes once.
Yeah, I'm like, wait, I can actually, like, look at my notes. Let me pull it up. I had a lot of things. So I'm trying to look at, so can we continue talking about Lucy and Christopher, or should we, like...
Yeah, no, that's...
Okay.
That just, like, freshly is on our brain,
right.
So let's try that.
So, a couple things as I'm just, like, scrolling through here. A couple things that were uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
Is she talks about her... Lucy. Lucy's favorite scent is Christopher's shampoo.
Oh, I hate that.
I
forgot about that.
Like, that is just, like, the type of thing where it's just, like, that's okay if it's, like, your own child that you birthed and you're like, oh, my favorite scent is my baby. You know, like, that baby smell or whatever.
Yeah.
But, like, a kid that's, like, at her school, I'm just like,
it's so inappropriate.
And especially, like, shampoo, I feel like is so I mean, like, we all hopefully use shampoo that smells good because everyone wants to smell good, but like, I don't
Mm,
know, it feels so intimate in a way, like
it
to
is.
notice someone's shampoo smell and think about it and have
Yeah.
that be your favorite thing. Like, that to me sounds like something that you would feel towards like your significant other. Like,
Yeah.
you like the way they smell like after a shower. That
Yeah.
feels very like just intimate, and that was like uncomfortable. And then like
Yeah.
they she always talks about like having to pull his socks out of his shoes because
Mhm.
his socks like fall down into his shoes, which I mean, like, that's like a normal thing that happens to kids.
Mhm.
But then like later in the book, she's talking to Hugo,
Mhm.
and she's like, would it be like, where is this, because I thought I wrote it down. Anyways, doesn't matter. I have it somewhere. But she's like, would it be weird if I got like sock garters for a 7-year-old? And sock garters were made like to be a functional thing, right? They actually were made to hold socks up. But it's like the context of like garters now, it's like you think of like kind of like a woman in lingerie or like something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
so like yes, like they are like a actual functional thing, but like I'm like, the fact that she's saying like, would it be weird if I got these for a 7-year-old kid, is like pointing to the fact that she knows that it's weird. So like,
Yeah.
why would you say that? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's just so much about the way that Lucy
Talks and treats
speaks about
Christopher.
him and
Yeah.
thinks about him, that is like, it really, what's interesting is her, because of like the lack of love from her parents growing up, it's
Mhm.
like she's obviously projecting and like
Yeah.
is like has like parent issues, and like
Yeah.
I think that is what makes her want to be a good mom so bad, is because she didn't have that.
Yeah.
But the way she's like projecting it onto this kid is like almost in like a romantic way.
Yeah, I can
And
see that. Yeah.
I don't feel like that was I don't feel like that was
The
written to
intention.
be intended,
Yeah.
but that's the way that it comes across. And it's like very, because like you can love your spouse and you can love your child, but those are two they are manifested in different ways, you know what I mean? And I
Mhm.
feel like, I don't know, I just, when I would hear her thoughts about Christopher, I was just like, you sound like you're obsessed with like him in a romantic way, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's also really important to know that like 90% of her interactions with Christopher, outside of like I guess that 1 week that like he had to stay with her while he was like figuring out his housing situation, um like it takes place in a professional setting, which is his school.
Mm-hmm.
And um there's so much that like you need to like it's not realistic for this relationship to happen in real life because
Right.
these are boundaries and lines that are crossed. Like you cannot be treating a child the way, like you should not be touching, hugging, like knowing the scent of a kid's
Yeah.
shampoo.
Putting him on your lap,
Yes.
pulling his socks out of his shoes. Yeah.
Yes. I think it's just like it goes to show Lucy's immaturity level. I just found her to be
Yeah.
a very immature character, very naive. Um and this is going to sound really brash, but like I think she maybe needs therapy before she becomes a parent. Like
Yeah.
I think Christopher to me acted almost like a band-aid over like her childhood trauma and like
Yeah.
her experiences growing up in an unloved family, and she wants to like I think she has so much love in her that she wants to extend to Christopher because she wants to be a good parent to a child. But like I do not think the character as we know her is going to be an incredible mom, because like I feel like she's acting like Christopher's just going to heal all her
Yes.
unsolved childhood trauma and grief.
Exactly.
And it just didn't feel like something I was ever rooting for, because I was just like, this feels like not a great situation. Like, it
Right.
just felt very like underdeveloped. I didn't understand why I should root for this
Right.
relationship, because it felt very uncomfortable and inappropriate to me.
And like along with that, I think that Christopher um kind of attached himself to Lucy because he lost his parents,
Yeah.
and she was like she was like a good person to him, and so it almost feels like Christopher like loved Lucy because she was an important adult in his life.
Yeah.
And so then Lucy latched onto him because she was getting love from somebody finally. And it's like, but you can't, like, Christopher's a child.
Yeah.
You can't like get like your, I don't know what the right word is, but like your like fix of like love from a 7-year
Yeah.
old boy that's not your child. Like, she didn't have really love from her parents. The relationship that she had wasn't really so loving. It was just kind of like they were just together just because they were together. So it's obvious that she needs love, and I feel like she is like, oh well, this little boy loves me, so now I like love him. You know what I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just like, you need to like, yeah, go to therapy, or like find a boyfriend.
Yes. Oh my God. This is like another thing, is it's just like, I feel like she realized in the games how much she has like not figured out in a way. Like, I think she understands that she's got so much more life to live
Yeah.
before she kind of like gets to a certain point in her life. But like, I'm thinking of like that talk that she has with Hugo, where she like is talking about how like all she wants is like a nice house to live in, like a car, and like maybe somebody who can like take care of her, because like she's tired of taking care of herself. She's like, I can't even like do everything in my life right, and I
Yeah.
need someone to come fix that. And like, I understand that feeling 100%. That makes a lot of sense. I'm also a
Yeah.
26-year-old who feels like I should not be
Yeah.
allowed to control my life. Me being maybe a little bit smart, I'm like, hey, I don't want to have a kid right now. I
Yeah.
could not handle that. I need to grow for like 4 more years, maybe,
Yeah.
get all this stuff together, and then I'll maybe have a kid. The fact that she is in this situation in her life and telling this poor child that like one day maybe we can be a family, and getting this poor boy's hopes up. He's getting so attached to her. Like,
Yeah.
she has no control at all, and he doesn't either, over like his fostering situation. And like, it's just like it, and you can see this manifest in the book in a very unhealthy way, because like she when he gets moved, she reacts insanely not good.
Yes.
Where like she's like almost like kills herself trying to get off the island.
Yeah.
Like, why does she think that's a good idea? And I think that just like really goes to show that she is in a very like, this is not a good relationship. That's not a
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
situation you're in, because girl, you should not, if you think you're gonna, and I understand that she's in a state of hysteria, and like
Right.
it's a very complicated situation, but like, I think it like, if a person may be ready to have a child at age 26, wouldn't almost kill herself trying to get off an island to go see him. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
And it's like, it was really interesting when that happened because,
Mm-hmm.
okay, like, I know that those, the hour they had after school every day was like really important to both of them.
Yeah.
But like, he was like moving like 45 minutes away or something. Like, it wasn't it was like one town over or something, but like he wouldn't be going to their school. Am I
I think
correct
you're
in that?
right.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
I'm like
Um,
I'm like the way she reacted, I was like, are you upset for him? Like, or are you upset for yourself? Because like, if he can be in a better foster situation, because his foster situation wasn't so great,
yeah.
like if he's moving to a better home,
Yeah.
then that is the best thing for him at the moment, even if you guys don't get to pull each other's socks up for 30 minutes after
No,
school.
yeah, and there's that whole conversation she has with Hugo, where like she goes to his door, and like it makes it seem like she's very, very worried about Christopher and like him feeling like he's being left behind. And then she has that slip up where she's like, "You don't understand what it's like waiting for somebody to like to come back." But then they like, she says something where
Right.
she's supposed to say Christopher or you, but she ends up saying me. Like she
Right.
definitely, it's like her childhood trauma coming out in the conversation. And that to me, I'm like, okay, so this is 100% about her. And I think
Right.
Christopher is also in the mix there. But it's very much like she has this unhealed childhood
Yes.
trauma that is coming out not healthily.
Right.
And I think it just like that part really, really rubbed me the wrong way, because it just felt very immature for the character, and very like I didn't get it. Like I didn't understand it. And I was like, again, if this character was like 18, 19, yeah, I could see this. This is totally explainable to me. But like being 26,
you know, after she talks to Hugo, and I think she like calls her friend or texts her friend or something, and they're like, you need to stay. The best thing you can do for him is try to win this contest, not come home so you can have 2 more hours with him before he inevitably moves away anyways. Like, so I think like, you know, we're supposed to see that, okay, she was acting a little irrationally and now she's coming to her senses. But I think there is so much still that's written that's, I think that we're supposed to be reading it as like, oh wow, she has such a devotion to this kid and she'd do anything she could. Like, we're supposed to be reading it in a sort of positive light, but really I'm like, actually, like, if you think critically, like, this is not positive. And so that's like that's part of what has been so hard about reading this book, is what I was saying before. Like, I just feel so uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it's tough because this is the main driving point of the entire story. Like, this is why she goes to the island. This is why she's competing so hard.
Right.
Like, and this is like what we want to be resolved at the end. And so it's just like it's a tough plot line to really root for.
Yeah. So speaking of relationships, if we want to talk a little bit about her and Hugo.
Yeah, I was actually hoping we could transition to this.
I found this like so I just like didn't understand, because every time that they were like flirting and kind of catching feelings, both of the characters in their head were like, oh, I know I shouldn't be thinking this. Oh, I know I shouldn't be liking the way that he smiles. Oh, I know I shouldn't be liking that she came over to my house. Like, why aren't you guys allowed to just like each other?
So
why?
True. Okay, this is what drove me
gosh.
crazy. It felt like there was like no like again, this book did a lot of like, I felt like it was telling me it was trying to do something, but I was like, okay, but like, are you doing this? Because like it felt like to me the author was like, oh, and this is like a slow burn, like this is like it, like they're dancing around their feelings for each other. And the entire time I was just like, okay, but they have an instant attraction to each other. The very first page that they meet, you know, like they're flirting, you know this is gonna happen. And I was like, where's the tension? Where's like the actual build up? Like, it just felt like they were like coming together and then pulling apart and then coming together and pulling apart. And I was like, why? I don't get it. I don't understand what I'm supposed to be feeling during these scenes. Like, they were just happening.
I'm glad to hear you say that too, because I didn't know, like, I'm just the type of person that it's like, I don't really know if I'd call myself a confrontational person, but it's just like, I will tell people how I feel, and like,
oh, okay,
you know, like, you know, any sort of relationship I've had, like, I'm making moves, you know, like, I tell the guy if I like him, you know, like that sort of thing. And like, so I was like, I don't know if this is just like me personally being like, why are they acting like this? I would never act like this.
No, it was so
sounds like it was
middle
just
school.
Like, yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what I was thinking too. Like,
I also thought, I think there are two ways to make people not feel incredibly great about like the starting and ending of your couple. And one way is to have their first meeting be the girl being 13 and the guy being in his 20s. And then the second is to have them like joke at the end that they're like step siblings.
Like yet another example of like inappropriate relationship. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm so sorry to this author. I feel like we're dragging her through the mud. It's like it's fine. It just like it felt so uncomfortable for me.
It's just odd, yeah.
And I don't know why, because it was like I was like, it's not like he showed any romantic interest in her when she was 13. Like it was a very platonic, fine meeting. I think what really rubbed me the wrong way is the fact that like the second they meet, when they're both of an appropriate age, like he has an instant attraction towards her.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think in order, if you have to absolutely have them meet when she's underage, is have it be such a slow burn that like it's also we're feeling also platonic feelings for a majority of the relationship, and then like maybe like after like knowing each other for a bit and getting to know each other as adults, then the feelings come, where we're completely dissociated from the meeting when they were 13 and 23 or however it was. But like we weren't at the time. Like they talk about how they remember meeting.
Right.
And then like I think he says something like, oh, like in his head, like something about her growing up into like a beautiful woman or whatever. And
like, ew, I don't
like it. I didn't like it. It definitely made me feel weird during like the start of their relationship.
Right, because it's like the ages that they are now, it's like that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, and I take issue in general when I can't see a clear reason that the people are like liking each other or falling in love, and I let it slide when it's like children's stuff, you know, like I'll watch any Disney whatever and it's just like, oh, love at first sight, and like I'm so into that, you know. I'm not, you know, against that, but I just didn't understand like why are they making eye contact and like catching feelings and then telling themselves, oh, but I shouldn't. Like I was just like, what is the barrier? It's like we were supposed to feel like a tension or a barrier, but it's like you guys are like on an island alone, like
yeah, like there's no rules yet. Like even Jack Masterson was like,
stop you. Yeah,
do it.
Yeah.
Like it's so interesting. I don't know. And it's like I did find certain scenes like sweet, I guess. Like I kind of liked how like they ended. Like I'm like, okay, this is gonna sound weird, I guess, but like I like that they didn't like have any like romantic moment until like the very end. Yeah. Like after like kind of like we were just wrapping everything up and it was like, oh, happy ending. Like I would have felt kind of strange if like after she had her breakdown and was hanging out in the room with him, like they shared their first kiss or whatever. Yeah. Like that would have been weird. I thought the pacing was fine toward the end, I guess, of their relationship. Like, for a majority of it, though, I was just very much like, I don't know why I need to care about them. It just feels like a random. And I mean, I know that the author was a romance author before this, and so like maybe like this was something that she was like, oh, and then I'll add in a romantic plot because like she likes writing romance or whatever. But it felt like to me, I'm not saying that it like dragged the story for me at all, but it did feel a bit random, and I wanted it to be better fleshed out.
And that's really saying something from you, because
I love romance.
Like you really like romance, and like
I'll latch on to any type of romantic relationship in a book. But like I was like sure, like I'll be here, but like I don't feel like it's anything to write home about. It's like nothing I'll think about ever after putting this book down, you know.
I also just like Hugo in general, I just like didn't really understand. He was always talking about like being like a miserable artist, but it always seemed like he was like saying it as like a nudge nudge wink wink situation. And I was like, are you actually miserable, or are you? It just seemed like we were just throwing tropes in left and right, you know.
I see that.
I know that he was like obviously like affected by the death of his brother, so of course that would make anybody miserable, but it just didn't seem, the way that he talked about being a miserable artist didn't seem congruent with the misery that would come with like the death of a sibling. Like it just seemed like it was just like he was like, oh yeah, like I really miss my brother. I'm a miserable artist. Like I don't know. It just didn't. I don't know. It didn't. It wasn't like believable to me.
Yeah, I think that like it goes back to like the idea that these characters are very just like not fleshed out and kind of one dimensional. Yeah. Like I think his point was to be the tortured artist, and like that's like a very fun trope to kind of have thrown in there, like when you're on a mysterious island and like you can't trust anyone, but oh my gosh, I'm getting close to this guy who's very closed off and kind of has a bad boy exterior or whatever you want to say for him. But yeah, that doesn't mean that you can just kind of throw that in there and not have it be incredibly. Yeah. I think there was just so much potential for every character, and like they all have these really interesting backstories.
There's
like
so much going on.
Yes, yeah, like it's like I think that the idea, if you were to put Hugo on paper, all these characters actually on paper, they all have very interesting, fleshed out. Like a, I guess like
potential.
Character, like character descriptions or potential or whatever you want to say, but like it just like never ever feels as fleshed out as it could in the actual text. Like I just I never understood why these characters were like, I didn't understand why I should care, you know? And it was like and there also, this is also another thing, I felt like none of them really had an arc. Like it felt like to me we kind of ended with the same characters that we started with. They just had better improved circumstances.
Yeah, they just like moved through a timeline.
Yeah, like I was like, okay, and I know again, like I think we're supposed to feel like Jack Masterson kind of was able to overcome like his depression and kind of like really like miserable few years that he was in after like the death of Autumn, or the character who came to his island, and like that's kind of interesting, but also like he never seemed also like a miserable or depressed character to me. So
I know. He seemed really... like a warm uncle or grandpa or something.
I don't know, but anyway, but like it just felt like this one thing that this book does, I just felt like everything just happened so easily, like everything just kind of fell into the characters' laps, and like by the end of it, when things started kind of just like wrapping up really perfectly, I was like, yeah, I guess this could happen. And like also, okay, this is also something about me, I'm somebody who like, I don't like watching like competition TV shows, because like I do get kind of annoyed when people like lose. And that's my most childish opinion, and I'm owning up to it. But like I'm like, ew, why do people have to lose? Like I can't watch the Great British Bake Off because it makes me mad when I have to watch people lose. And so part of this ending, I was like, oh sweet, no one gets to lose. Like nice, like we all kind of get something. And I do like the idea that if you're a millionaire and you have the funds to help people's lives get better, and you're willing to do it, I think that's great. Cool. Yeah. That's a cool idea. But then it does, like, when you get to the end of it, you're like, okay, but like, what did we learn? Why did we go on that journey? Right. I'm kind of annoyed that like no one won, because if you're gonna have like such kind of like a lackluster game, that like
let's talk about the game next.
The games were so no, but genuinely, like if you're gonna have just like very kind of like easy peasy games that like we're being kind of strung along through, being told that they feel like so like stressful, or like this is all or nothing and like whatever, and then just to at the end have it be like such a kind of like throw in the towel type of ending where it's just like nobody wins but everybody wins kind of thing. I'm like, what did we do? What happened? I don't know. But anyway, you talk about the games, because I think I'm going to agree with everything you're going to say.
The first game being, what can we bring through the green glass door? Mm-hmm. Did those other characters not go through the third grade? Like I was like completely shocked that they had a whole 5 pages of Lucy finally figuring out what
Mm-hmm.
this riddle means. And it's like, I'm I know not everybody had the same elementary school experience, but I'm like, I just feel like that's so, it was shocking to me how elementary it was. And I know
Yeah.
that the point was that all the games were supposed to be like kids can figure them out, because that's the
Yeah.
whole thing, they're like riddles for
Yeah.
kids. But I was so, actually called I called Kelly the other day and ranted to her about this, about
How
how
dumb
I
the games are.
I just like I am willing to suspend my disbelief for a lot of things,
Yeah.
but I just couldn't get on board and believe that like Lucy would figure this out, and then the 3 other characters would be up for hours begging for clues, cussing, swearing, the F word, this, like, over this game. I could not believe it. Like, I just don't. I was just like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it genuinely like I again, and this is another thing where it's just like maybe if we were dealing with teenagers or people who did not have college educations, the one guy went to Harvard.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. um that's insane. Sorry. It's just a little crazy. And then like I was thinking, I was like, okay, maybe we're gonna be upping the stakes the more we go into these games. And it just like was
Right.
like, oh no, take the last letter of these things. And then also it's like we then speed rushed through the rest of the games where in like maybe 3-4 pages we were like, oh, and then we played Monopoly and then we did this and now we're at the
Yeah.
like one person has 6 points and I have 5 points. And I was like, isn't this like the whole point where we're on the island? Like we should be like spending time with the games.
Right.
Like it felt very like we're like to go back to our original point, not as grand as it should be. Like
Right.
I just wanted
Right.
it to be so much more.
I know.
And
Like,
I
I
don't
was really
know.
excited for, like, all these surprising riddles and having to explore the island and figure out this and figure out that. And I was just like,
Yeah.
the green glass door from 3rd grade.
Yeah. And it's just like, and then like competition, it was the most pleasant competition ever because everybody was friends, of course. And we all wanted everybody to win. And it was just like, I was like, okay, I'm so confused where the tension or the stakes are. Like the fact too that like the one time we got like actual, I think, interesting tension in this book, it was solved in a page because like that
Yeah,
one
they
guy,
just sent him away.
yeah, the one guy came up to her and was like, we should cheat. And then it was like, oh, that's against the rules. But of course, it's not even from Lucy's perspective. We're in Hugo's perspective. And Hugo overhears. And then Hugo
Yeah.
immediately, and of course, Jack's on the island too. And he's like walking up the beach towards them. And so he gets to hear immediately. And then he just gets sent away and everything's fine.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, like what? Like,
Right.
I feel
Right.
like that could have been interesting. But don't worry, it was solved
Right.
within like 2 seconds. So I don't know. It was like, I mean, in some ways, again, if you're coming at this book and wanting like a really comforting, feel good, not very confrontational read, I think it's perfect for that because there's really not very high stakes.
Yeah. I don't know if I would call it feel good though.
You don't think
I
it's
don't
feel
know.
good? I think it's
No.
fairly feel good towards the end,
It
especially
felt
because
uncomfortable.
okay, well, yeah, but like that's like if you again like if you're like coming at it and seeing these problems, then yeah. But like I think for a lot of people, and I mean I'm mostly saying this because I was like low key scouring Reddit before this, and I was like, what are people saying about this book?
Yeah.
And
I'm
a
so
lot
curious.
of people were calling it like a very feel good read, and I do see that because the ending is feel good. Like everybody gets what they want. It's not a very like
Yeah, that's true.
hard it's like I don't have to like deal with a whole bunch of complicated feelings. in
Okay, I see
this,
what you're
you know
saying.
I
I see what
mean?
you're saying. Yeah.
Like it's not like the Hunger Games, you know what I mean? Like,
Right,
like,
right.
but that doesn't mean that it like also like like yeah, it was uncomfortable to read because I don't think the author was really approaching these things as well as she should have been. But
I got you. I was on a different wave. I see.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying now.
Okay, cool, slay. But yeah, I don't know. I thought that the majority of this book, and I guess the majority of this book was, but I thought it was just going to be mostly we're on the island and there's going to be a big competition and it's going to be like really kind of high stakes and like fun and like mysterious in a way, or like thrilling even. And it just wasn't any of that. Like it never reached its full potential, I think, for like what the tension could have been to really make this be like I'm on the edge of my seat, I'm so excited to find out what's going to happen, and I want Lucy to win so badly. I just never felt like that.
Right. And I also feel like along with that, I felt like the writing and what was said and the way that Hugo and Jack acted was always like in favor of Lucy. And I kind of had a hard time, like, I didn't really like that because I was like, because the whole thing is these are 4 kids that like ran away to him at some point. They all needed something from him at some point. So like Lucy might have it the worst now, but like they all were in need. And I was like, why are like Hugo and Jack so obsessed with Lucy? Like
it did feel like, kind of weird to me too.
Like, why is she? It makes me think of I just thought of this. And the 12 Dancing Princesses, you know, I always get mad because the little one, there's like the triplets and the one, I think her name is Lacey.
Yeah.
And she's always like, oh, I'm too small. Like, they're always like, Genevieve is always like, you know, helping her. Anyways, if you know the reference, cool. If you don't, sorry. But I just felt like it was like, oh, these other people are so like well established and they're a lawyer and a doctor and a this, and like poor Lucy, she's just a kindergarten teacher's aide. You know what I mean? Like
I think because of that too, I never ever questioned whether or not Lucy was going to get helped by Jack Masterson. I knew the entire time, I was like, she's either gonna win this game or he's gonna help her.
Right.
And so I was like, so what am I really... Like, again, it felt like this book was just kind of predictable in the way that I knew what every single outcome was going to be. Like, I knew that she was going to be able to, like, be with Christopher. I knew that her and Hugo were going to get together. I knew that, like, she was either going to win the game, or, like, Jack was going to do something, a consolation prize for her. Like, I knew that was all going to happen. I was just like, but how is that going to happen? I was, like, just reading it to find out. And I was like... whatever. Like I just like was like, okay, so how exactly is this going to play out? That's the only thing that I'm really reading for. I just already knew what it was going to end up as.
Right.
But yeah, no, I agree. Sorry, continue.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Well, I was just going to say, I agree, and it's just interesting that it was just like not enough attention, I think, for me also was like focusing on the other players. Other than the fact, and like this is another thing that I think it just shows how maybe a little bit naive and immature Lucy is, but the fact that I think she said this about almost everybody, but she was like, I just thought that you had like the most perfect life and everything was okay for you. Like I didn't realize that you also had struggles like me. And I'm like, that's such I'm in my mid-20s and I don't have my life figured out yet kind of thought to have. Like, like people, just because this like middle-aged woman who owns a bookshop and has nice clothes on is like appearing like she has everything put together, it doesn't mean that her life is put together. Like not everyone's walking into a room acting like woe is me all the time.
I know.
Sorry, Lucy.
No, but that's so true. Like I feel like they just, the book and Jack and Hugo and Lucy herself like played her up as like such the underdog, and like her life is so broken and hard. And can I switch gears for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to go back to a little bit about Lucy and Hugo, just because I said both their names and I thought of this.
Okay. Something
that I thought was going to be explored and would have been so interesting but never was was the fact that Lucy had a sick sister that her parents you find out 20 pages towards the end of the book or whatever that they're basically like, what do you call that? Like Munchausen's by proxy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I literally wrote in my notes, I was like, okay, I guess we're doing that now. Like,
No, literally.
like it came out of nowhere. But
I know.
but anyways, it's like she had a sick sister that basically took all the attention, like the parents gave all their attention to her.
Yeah.
And that really affected Lucy because she was like, quote unquote, the normal kid.
Right.
And then Hugo has a brother who has Down syndrome.
Yes.
And but Hugo like loved his brother. They were so close. Like his brother was like, you know, everything to him. He cared so much about him. He did so much for him. And so he has a very different, like they're both siblings of like disabled or sick children.
Yeah.
That just by nature of their situation require more care and attention.
Yeah.
But like Lucy was kind of like worst case scenario and Hugo was kind of best case scenario. And I thought like they're talking about, you know, when she goes to his like house and they're like looking at the paintings and she finds the one of Davy, and so she's asking Hugo about Davy, and I thought there was going to be like an exploration of how their situations by nature were similar, but like by nurture were very different.
Yeah.
And they just
didn't.
They never talk about it. They like never mention, oh, you had like a sibling that needs extra care. Me too. Here's how it was different. And here's how it affected us. They just, it's like as if they treat it as like two completely separate things that have no relation to each other. And to me, it's
so true.
Yeah, it seemed so obvious. Obviously, it's not the exact same situation, but it's similar enough. Like, I feel like if I had a sibling that had some sort of sickness or illness or disability like that, and I met someone else who also was in that situation, like, I would want to talk to them about it because, you know, that's like not everyone can relate to that, so you would want to
like bond and
be
that.
able to talk about that. I was so shocked that it was just like
that's actually crazy,
never mentioned.
Yeah, no, and I mean that is actually insane now that I think about it. There's also a scene, okay, do you remember when like they're all talking, like the people who are competing, and like we find out that the man, I can't remember his name, it's like Andre or something.
That sounds like one of them. Yeah,
so the man of the group, not the guy who gets kicked out, he mentions how his dad is dying and he can't tell his son because they're best friends, and he just doesn't have the nerve yet to like work up the courage to tell his son, which that's a very real problem, and made me feel very bad for this poor man.
Yeah,
which we brush past it so quickly. Basically, like, the guy who's talking is barely even expressing his grief for it, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And then Lucy has the nerve to say something like, that must be so hard, but I can't, like, as someone who didn't have a dad, I feel so blessed to know that, like, my son, like, has such a strong relationship with my father. I was like, how dare you?
Yeah.
Like, kind of like, that's not how normal people interact about this type of stuff. And then when you take that and think about the fact that she never thought to bring up, hey, we kind of have similarities between her and Hugo, you're like, okay, girl, like, are you eating? Like, what? I don't understand. Anyway,
that leads me into another, I don't know if like issue is the right word, but just like another part of the book that was just like hard for me to like enjoy and really like get behind is I feel like there was just so much going on, like so many issues. Yeah. And the fact that we're finding out towards the end of the book, like, oh, actually the whole thing with the sister when they talk on the island and the sister's like, well, actually, Mom and Dad were really horrible to me, and they always made me think I was sick, and then I had to start taking antidepressants or whatever. And she's like, so actually, I was really jealous of you because, like, you got to live with Grandma and Grandpa, and, like, it felt it just felt very immature. And I was kind of like, I have sisters and we've gotten mad at each other and we didn't see eye to eye and then we talked it out and then it's like, oh, okay, I guess maybe we were both right from our own perspectives,
Right.
So it's like I was trying to like have some empathy for them, but I was just like, what the heck?
It was
like
a very weird conversation, yeah.
and I felt like it was just like the sister Angie talking at Lucy, and then Lucy
like,
thinking like, oh wow, I never had considered.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, never in 26 years you ever considered like to think more deeply about your parents' behavior and like how it might have affected not just you.
Yeah. And I think that's another example of like a scene that could have been like very tension filled and interesting to explore, but just was wrapped up so easily. Like I was like Lucy comes into that room like with like fists swinging. Like she's literally like, how dare you, when you were 16 you said this to me, a very heinous thing to say to a 12-year-old. But like she was really rude to her at 16, made her feel very unloved, very like like she didn't matter in the family. That's how her whole entire family treated her, and that's very valid for Lucy to feel like a lot of resentment towards her for that. And then of course she's like, you need to hear my point of view, and it's like, our parents were sick and like had Munchausen's by proxy. What? Like that to me felt so left field. Like if I was like, sure, of course there's this really interesting easy explanation for all of this that we can just wrap up in a bow.
Yeah, like I feel like it would have been more effective for Angie to be like, I'm sorry, like I didn't ask for mom and dad to put all of their time and attention into my healthcare. Like I'm sorry that left you behind. Like I wish that it would have been different. Not like, oh, well actually I had it bad too because mom and dad are just bad parents.
Yeah.
That was like
that
not
like made me feel very weird, yeah.
It like, okay.
Yeah.
So
can I say one more thing, kind of skipping ahead?
Oops. Yeah.
The fact that she gets sick at the end and has like 4 months to live. What are your thoughts on that?
It was just like curveball after curveball after curveball, and like I didn't understand the purpose.
Me neither. Okay, I was wondering if it was because like everything is fixed so easily in the end, and I was thinking that the fact that they added the idea that like, but this relationship that I had is never going to be fully healed because my sister's dying and we're not going to have enough time in the world to like fully like move past everything that we did. And so I think that in a way that is like being like, there are some things in life that can't be fixed with like the snap of your fingers, and like that's trying to like level out the ending a little bit maybe. Yeah. It felt really weird to me though. Like I just like, and it made me feel kind of upset because I think the whole book was about like healing from like past traumas, especially like related to your childhood, and like mostly just through the lens of Lucy. But like, it was all about Lucy coming to terms with like healing her past childhood traumas. And the fact that like her sister just kind of is in the same place that she was as a child, but now she's gonna die, made me feel like really like not, I didn't like it. Like, I just felt like I was like, there has to be another way that we can maybe end her story.
Yeah.
That doesn't make me feel upset that everyone gets to move on and like she's confronted with the exact same thing.
Right. Yeah.
But like 10 times worse because now she's going to die from it. But I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It and just like the whole thing with the girl, Autumn, that like
so random.
She tries to swim to the island or like stow away on the ship or whatever because like her father was sexually abusing her. It was just like oh my gosh, like we did not get a break at all from like all these people going through traumatic things, and I almost feel like it was like trauma overload to where like I feel like I wasn't like, of course I'm reading this and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so horrible, and I'm feel so sad for this, like, I mean, she's fictional, but it's like, oh my gosh, that's so horrible for that character. But it's like, I just feel like there was so much trauma here, trauma there, trauma there, trauma there, that like we never really dove deep enough into any one
Yeah.
thing to like
Yeah.
like I feel like I read this book and I was not emotionally affected like at all. Like
I agree.
like I didn't feel like really stirred by anything. And I feel like
Yeah.
I should have been,
Yeah,
because
that's a good point.
there
Yeah.
was so many opportunities
Yes.
where it's like it seemed like it should be emotionally stirring, but I was just like,
Okay.
wow, that's really horrible. But I guess we're flipping the page and we're on to something else, you know?
Yeah, and I think too, it's just like this goes back to us talking about how we felt like a bit uncomfortable and awkward when reading. It's just like I think there was like the way that the book is written is like it's trying to be like a bit whimsical. I think it's childish in a lot of ways, and I don't know if it's intentional or not.
Mm-hmm.
But then like it would be juxtaposed with like these really gruesome just like stories dropped in where like and then
Yeah.
this child died on this beach because of Jack, and he got a lawsuit against him, and now he's in a depression for the past 6
Right.
years because of it. Like I'm like, that is a very insane story that like I felt like was just kind of dropped into the story and does not have like the sort of like I was like, this story doesn't feel like it should be like having these really traumatic like stories and like
Right.
backgrounds and things. I don't know how to explain this well, but like it felt like it just wasn't the tone that
Yeah.
like the author was writing with, and I got
Exactly.
really confused and uncomfortable every time something traumatic was kind of brought up like that, because I was like, this just does not feel like the tone that like the book
Right.
is trying to establish.
Right.
So yeah, I hope that made sense.
Yeah,
I
no,
kinda
I
lost
no,
my
I
way.
I completely get what you're saying. That's even like I felt similarly like we're talking about a child author or like a children's book author, and then
Yeah.
Lucy's talking about Christopher and he's a little boy and blah blah blah, and then like 2 pages later she's like eating soup and she's like she was like, oh sorry, that was a little pornographic to Hugo. And I think it's supposed to be sort of tensiony, like the fact that she even said that, and like
Yeah.
almost romantic. I'm like, 5 seconds ago you were talking about a little boy, and I'm just like, what? Like
yeah.
it was kind of
Yeah.
like, that's different than like the trauma and stuff, but just it was just like unclear, like how I was supposed to be reading this book.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Um. Wait, can we? Okay, I feel so bad because I feel like we spent the past hour and a half just like totally dogging on this book, and like I didn't hate the book actually. Like I don't
Wait.
think I liked it, but
Yeah.
wait, what do you want to say?
And also, she had a miscarriage.
Oh,
Like,
that was so random.
like,
Yes,
there was just thing
That's
after
real.
thing after
That-
thing.
it's
and, like,
so.
None of it was. I feel like I never got to really feel how those things should make you feel.
Yeah. There's so many things in here that like I think the author knew needed to be approached with grace and like needed to be approached with like the best intentions,
Mm-hmm.
because she was writing them like all the characters knew how serious they were. They had serious effects on all the characters, and she was telling the readers the effects that all of it had on the characters. But like it was never approached in the way that I felt like made it realistic, made it feel like it was actually written well, or made it feel like it was something that like you said, like kind of fleshed out enough that like I could also feel the effects as the reader, rather than
Right.
just reading words on a page that like the author was
Right.
saying we should care
That,
about
oh,
it.
they're sad. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's just like I think like there was just like just because like the book is trying to not be like the most serious kind of like a book that like that focuses or talks about traumatic things solely, Like, it
Right.
definitely is trying to be a book that's supposed to be more so, like, fun and, like,
Uh-huh.
everybody, it works out for everybody, not to worry. But,
Right.
like, you do need to, like, there are serious issues, and a lot of them in this book that, like, need to
Yeah.
be taken very seriously. And I don't feel like I ever felt
Right.
satisfied with any of the problems that were brought up. I was just like,
Yeah.
this is a great thing to bring up. Let's explore it more. And it just never was like that. The miscarriage one really, really, really threw me. And I
Yeah.
did not like the way I didn't like the way that it was just thrown in there. And I mean, I get that it was like I don't know. It's like, oh, sorry, my my candle warmer just turned off and it scared
Oh.
me, so my room got a little darker. But it's like and I get like there are certain things that like we don't need to make a part of someone's personality if they've experienced it, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Cuz like a lot of these things are fairly common. And I mean, I get why maybe she would see the value in just like saying, and this is like a traumatic story of Lucy's, and this is how she ended up here, and she does have trauma, but we're not going to explore it very much. I understand in some way why you would do that, but it was just like a very common habit in this book to kind of
Yeah.
have that happen over and over and over again, and I just like felt like I wanted just so much more out of so many of the things
Right.
that were brought up.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. Um, I have a couple. I have like four more things I want to say, and one of them is like one thing that I really liked. So
Okay.
should I say that now, or should I like end on that?
Well, why don't we end on like
Okay,
positive
okay.
things? Yeah.
So again, just one other thing that I wrote down that I just didn't like is like towards the end of the book, she said like Lucy said like these are quotes. He's mine, and then this is a quote from the book. But then Christopher was hers. Like I didn't like the way that Christopher was
Oh, something
talked
to
about.
possessed. Yeah.
Yeah, like that she was like possessing him.
Yeah.
He's mine. Christopher was hers.
Yeah.
I just didn't really like that. I also think like kind of how we were talking about like the tone was unclear because like it seemed whimsical and fun, but then like also all this serious stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was like reading the last page and
Title drop. Sorry.
oh my gosh, so true. I didn't even plan that. So they're all screaming and they're like, and why not? Lucy thought she did too. So did Hugo. So did Jack.
When
And
you
I
have
think
to
that it
scream,
should
you
have
have to scream. Sorry, I just
it
hated
should
that.
have ended right there.
Oh, okay. Wait.
And then then instead of saying when you gotta scream, because to me that last sentence made it goofy.
Yes.
Like
Okay, do you remember a few days ago when I texted you and I said, is the reason why you don't like this book because you find it cringy? Because I just read a line that made me cringe very hard. Every single time she said, when you gotta scream, I cringed so much because I was like, I hate that. Like, I just don't like that. And she ended maybe like 3 chapters on that.
really, I didn't even remember.
Either 3 chapters or like 3 scenes was just like landed on that. Or like maybe she just mentioned it 3 times. But every time it was used, I was just like, I don't like it. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Like, it does just kind of like prolong the scene for a beat too long, and it makes it seem like a sweet to like overly cheesy.
Yeah, because like I feel like it was so good. Like Christopher screamed, and then Lucy thought, why not? So she screamed. So did Hugo.
Yeah.
So did Jack. And it's just like they all screamed out of pure delight.
Yeah, we don't.
But
have
then
to
why
have
did
the
we need
extra
this
beat.
last sentence?
I agree.
And then the other thing I was gonna say, this was just like a thought that I had. I heard someone say one time somewhere, I don't know, some movie guy that makes movies said like something to the effect of, you don't make great movies by watching great movies. You make them by living a great life. Like something like that.
Okay.
Like the people that make really good movies, it's because they are living deeply and fully.
Yeah.
And like he was talking about how like all these, you know, kids these days or whatever that want to be filmmakers, they're like studying all the films. But it's like that's a part of it, but you also have to just like live life and like study life and see like what's happening around you. and I just like wrote that down while I was reading, because I just felt like some of this was like kind of how we were saying, like trope and this and that. Like it just
Yeah.
felt like it was like there was a lot of things in there that felt like, oh, we've seen this type of thing done in a book before and it's worked well before, but it didn't feel rooted in like reality.
Yeah.
And like I didn't like, it sounds like you felt this way too. Like I didn't feel connected to the characters because they didn't feel real.
Yeah.
And it's like I feel like if maybe it was written more based on like life and like, as opposed to like good, like good books. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I agree.
Just a thought that I had.
Yeah. That was
Okay.
That was really well said. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Here's my thing that I really liked that I wrote down is I liked the backstory of the clock and Jack's backstory.
Oh.
Okay, because here's another thing. Jack also had childhood trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But that I thought that was a really interesting.
Was that like the backstory with like his father and like he was talking
Yeah.
about the werewolf and wanting to
Like his dad was an alcoholic,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
he would like watch his watch or the clock on the
Yes.
wall, and it felt like a safe. Like if he could get to this time, he knew he would be
Yeah.
safe. So he took a lot of comfort in the clock,
Yes.
and
yes.
I thought that was a really creative and kind of good cap on the whole clock island, just like bit in general, like the island itself and all these books. And it's like, because we kind of don't necessarily know a lot about Jack, and then it's like I thought that was really good insight into his character and where he came from and why he's where he is now.
Yeah, I agree. That's a really good point.
Yeah, so that's one thing. Like I wish we could have had that for all the characters and like understood them, you know. And I thought it was also just like really creative and also like not emotional, that's not the right word, but like it's like, oh, he took this thing that was difficult for him and he like turned it into something like good. And like
Yeah.
look at how his childhood trauma
Manifested
is
into
now
something.
like
Yeah.
helping all these other kids.
Yeah,
Like
I agree.
I really liked that.
I agree. I think that is actually the thing that I like the most about this book, like that overall message that you just said. I do like the idea that it's kind of taking children's like love and care for like books and like literature and like just like their imagination in general very seriously. And like I think it's something that a lot of readers relate to and understand very well, because like if you're a reader now, most likely you were a reader when you were a child, and like you can understand like that love that you have and like the safe space that like literature is for a lot of kids. And I think that like this book is a book based 100% obviously in like that love of literature, and like it never presents itself, at least like on the page, like whether or not we read it as readers like it is a different story, but like it never presents like children's literature as like silly, goofy, something that you shouldn't take seriously. Like
Right.
it's very much a book that like the author understands what his work is doing for all the kids, and like you can tell he cares about the youth a lot.
Yeah.
And whether or not he has healthy relationships with them is another story, but like but I do think it is a very comforting kind of sweet thing to like to have this author, because like that's the thing that all kids want. Like they want to be able to write a letter to an author and get a letter
Right.
back. Like that is a very sweet idea. And
Yeah.
I just think like intention wise, I like the idea of it. And like I don't know, he like again Jack Masterson reminded me a lot of like a Lemony Snicket type of character. I don't know if like Lemony Snicket, isn't he like an author who like kind of like would write fan mail back to his readers?
Maybe. I actually one time wrote a letter. I never sent it, but I was like raging, like, why didn't you answer any of these questions? But I didn't send.
Wait, that's actually so funny.
But he might have. He might have been.
Yeah.
I don't know. It sounds legitimate.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems like the idea of like like kids who are in need feeling very, very emotionally attached to stories, like I think it just like it shows the importance of like what actually like writing and authors kind of can do with their work.
Yeah.
Which I think is just always nice all around to
Yeah.
explore.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, again, I thought the setting was really cool. I didn't even like actually consider kind of how great like his backstory was, specifically for like the clock setting and like the way like his whole entire castle was set up. But like I agree, now that you mention it, like that is like a really interesting insight into his character. Low-key, I do think Jack Masterson was probably my favorite character, just because like I think out of all the characters that were allowed to not be like super well fleshed out, he probably is the one that I'm like okay with not being super fleshed out, because like you can kind of be a whimsical, zany, creative.
He's the mastermind.
Like, yeah, like the author like who's been stuck on the island for like the past like 20 years, like writing his kids' stories, like, but like has a very pure heart. Like that to me, I think is like a totally fine character actually. And like I think he was kind of charming to me. Like I liked his intentions throughout the book. But again, like also was like he was a very interesting like game maker, if you want to call him that, because like I never ever doubted that like he was not going to like help everybody out, you know what I mean? So like it's a good and a bad thing. Like you give and you take. Like for the games, was he the best person at the helm to kind of like give us the best, most interesting games? Probably not, because he was kind of just like, I'm so sorry that you lost. Oh my gosh. like don't worry, have a cup of tea.
Right. I feel like, you know, the whole point of him doing the games was because he wanted to follow through on some wishes for these kids, and that was like an interesting plot. And I almost feel like I cared more about that and him seeing that through with each of the kids than I cared about like Lucy's specifically. I almost wonder what it would have been like if we were reading more from Jack's perspective and still had Lucy's whole story and also the other ones, and like, you know, I don't know.
Would have been more interesting to me, less Hugo perspectives, more Lucy Jack perspectives. Like I wanted Hugo to be maybe more so something that we only got from Lucy's perspective, and like that relationship, because also I think that would have built more tension, just like completely being closed off to his feelings. But like Jack to me, I just wanted more of him. Like he was like kind of like just like not so much explored as a character, other than just like what he was set out to do.
Right.
But yeah, no, I agree. I actually thought was one thing that was really interesting was like his whole journey with like realizing that like he was running out of time. Like he was kind of having to face like these like existential thank you, existential kind of you know, thoughts. And like I liked the metaphor that he kept using about like how his what's it called, the thingy that you flip and the like sand comes down.
What's that called? Like the sand, the time turner sand thing.
Yeah. Like
what is that called?
I don't know. The time tape? No, I don't know. Anyway, but like how his like timer, he said basically he had more sand on the bottom than he did on the top, and like that metaphor like kind of really struck me, because I was like, that's so true. Like it's like he's kind of in like the winter of his life currently, and like he has to like really like he has to put together a lot of he has to tie together a bunch of strings, and like I think that was like a really like that made sense a lot for like his all of us, because we've been filming for 2 hours now, all of a sudden my brain's kind of like losing every single word that I need to find. But like, you know, like it's like he had to fulfill a lot of his responsibilities, or like you can kind of be stuck in a rut for as long as you want when you are like in your 20s, maybe in your teens. But like he kind of,
when you don't have to face
he came to this kind of realization that like, okay, well, the reason why I'm going to start writing again is because I have like things that I need to fulfill, and like promises I need to keep, and like all this stuff. And I thought that was a really interesting reason for him to like come out of
Yeah.
retirement or whatever he was doing.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't realize till like basically the very end of the book that his name is Jack Masterson, and he's the mastermind.
Okay, well, so you didn't realize it, and then you
Well, yeah, I
texted
didn't
me,
realize it.
and I was like 40% of the way in. And by the way, the next time I picked up my book after that, there was a line where Masterson and Mastermind were like right next to each other, and I was like, oh, I guess I would have figured it out then because I was looking at it, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
But like, yeah, truly, like that's a silly.
Yeah,
silly.
That was just so everyone knows sometimes I'm dumb. Like, maybe I don't have all the answers, so,
Yeah,
you know.
maybe you wouldn't have solved every single one of these.
Yeah.
These games. Yeah. Do you have anything else that you want to touch on before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I think I kind of got all my main points across that I wanted to. It was just, it was definitely an interesting read, just not at all what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think that the thing that really saved this for me, because again, like I said, I didn't dislike it really. Like, I had a lot of issues with it, and I feel bad that we talked mostly about all of our issues. But I think what really saved it was like the pacing was quite fast.
Yeah, that's true.
There were some parts that I like kind of found a bit boring, but like for the most part, like it was an easy, quick book to get through, and it's like under 300 pages. So like I am really happy that it was that length. I actually think if it was any longer, it would have definitely like dragged in places.
Yeah.
I think it was the exact length that it should have been. I also think that this could possibly, if they ever want to do it, I think it could be an interesting movie. I feel like a lot of the aesthetics that the book was going for, they got that down pretty well in the book, and I saw it pretty well in my head. So I think like the idea. Oh, she doesn't agree.
No. I just have something good to say. No, keep going.
Okay. But like, I think that like I was playing out in my head like a movie the entire time. I was like, I could like definitely see this being like a kind of fun movie. I do think again they should age down the characters, and this would be a very fun like YA type of teen movie.
And make Lucy be like an 18, 19-year-old who has a little brother, and they're like in the foster system or something.
Right. I think that would read better for at least me. I don't know about general audiences, but me, I would like that more.
No, the reason I started smiling is because she is an MFA candidate in TV and screenwriting.
Yeah, and I saw that. I was like, that's really interesting. And she teaches, doesn't she? Creative writing?
Yeah, so makes sense. Yeah.
I wonder.
It makes sense that she would be writing in a way that could be adapted to the screen.
Yeah, I think I need to look up if there's any plans to have this be adapted, because I know it was pretty well received, at least like with people buying it when it first came out. Like it sold well, so I wonder if anyone has the rights to it. But it'd be interesting.
Yeah. I think maybe we should end it there so that
it's a happy
we
note.
end it on like a good note.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys, let us know your thoughts and feelings about this. Again, like, we are definitely not people who like to come on the podcast and like say don't read a book and this is all of our negative feelings. Like, it's like genuinely like, let us know if you agree with anything, if you disagree with anything. Yeah.
I'm not saying that my mind will be changed, but I'm always curious, especially on the ones that I didn't like as much. I'm always curious. I want to hear from real people, because like I don't really want to like read online reviews it's like I want to hear from someone that I know, you know, like what they liked about it, just because like I'm curious, like what I'm just curious. I like to know like what is appealing to other people that maybe wasn't appealing to me, and like I don't know, I'm just always curious about that. So you know, you guys can always email us at readthelastpagebookclub@gmail.com.
Yeah, please do. Laura loves emails.
Please, I would love to have emails. So everyone, thanks for listening to Read the Last Page. Our music and illustrations are created by the wonderful Sage Timothy.
If you don't know our schedule yet, we host our book club episodes. Well, usually on the first Wednesday of each month, but obviously we kind of had a different schedule for this month. But our next episode is going to be a book. Our next episode is going to be a book club episode. So for next month, we will be reading The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. Yay, you have that. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
That episode will be out on the first Friday of March. So be sure to pick up a copy and read it by then if you want to discuss with us.
Before we get to the last page, though, we'll see you. Nope, we won't see you in 2 weeks for a catch-up episode. We will see you in 2 weeks for the last page of this. So yeah, you can find that. Well, you can find this and the next episode on your podcast platform of choice. Or if you'd rather watch your podcast, you can find us on YouTube at Read the Last Page. And for now, we want to say bye from B
and Dan.
Bye.
Bye.